We are so hell-bent for leather currently to destroy our planet, to get the very last drop of climate-altering, subsidized fossil fuels. We are wiping all of the sea life out of the ocean. You don't even need to be a physicist or a marine scientist to go, what is this guy saying? Whether you're a trillionaire, or the soon-to-be trillionaires, or whether you're a pauper, we all breathe air, we all drink water, and we all eat food. What we're doing to our planet right now is poisoning everything. And we, together, trillionaires and paupers, we cannot live on this planet. We have no other planet. Hello, Plan B.
The Vidal Speaks podcast.
Episode 44, Dr. Reese Halter, the Earth Doctor, on the seas, bees, and trees. Welcome to Vidal Speaks. My name is Deborah Vidal, former 11-year LPGA golf pro turned classical homeopath, certified plant-based nutritionist, and wellness coach. Each week here on Vidal Speaks, we bring you knowledge, inspiration, or natural remedies to help you take charge of your health and feel your best. I believe health is freedom and knowledge is power, so tuning in each week will give you the power to take steps towards freeing yourself from the chains that hold you back from having the energy to do all you want in life. No matter where you are in your journey of wellness, Vidal Speaks can help. I promise. Welcome back, my friends. Vidal here, your host of the Vidal Speaks podcast, a show about helping others learn how to heal themselves with natural and alternative methods, including using a plant-based diet, homeopathy, and detoxing. But it's also a show to help motivate you to take responsibility of your own health and your own life choices so you can be the best possible you. So, you guys, it's Wednesday. And Wednesdays now are a great day that I look forward to because I get to have you guys with me, and I love that. And I feel so thankful to have all of you help me spread the word. I'm so grateful to each and every one of you. We all need to help each other, and now more than ever, because with the state of health the people of our world are in, and with the state of health that our beautiful earth and animals are in, we need to spread the word as fast as possible. Today's show, we're going to focus on the state of our Mother Earth. My guest today is Dr. Reese Halter, PhD, also known as the Earth Doctor. He is one of my favorite people I've ever met because he's dedicating his entire life to saving the earth, or as he calls it, saving the bees, trees, and seas. This subject is so dear to my heart. I feel so deeply for what we're losing and what we're doing to our Mother Earth and all those glorious animals that inhabit it. Dr. Reese spends every waking minute educating all of us about what is really going on and what we can do to turn things around. He also holds many great events in Los Angeles and all over that we can all partake in to either protest or to do a march when something's not right or just to help clean up our oceans. When you hear what Dr. Reese has to say, you won't be able to question climate change. Come on, really. Are there still people out there not believing in climate change? Anyway, that's not even up for discussion on my show, and Dr. Reese is the man to tell you exactly what's going on. And what I love is he can also explain why. He's so intelligent and he has this incredible gift to explain complex issues in a very understandable way. It's really important that we really understand and learn about what's going on. We can't keep living in denial anymore because we're at a very critical point, and soon there will be no turning around. When you hear him today, you'll know him because he has the voice of those who can't speak, and the voice behind the popular Earth Doctor Daily podcast. And if you have not heard that, then you can go every day to his website and check it out. Be sure to do that. You can also find it on Facebook and Twitter. His website is Dr. Reese, REESE.com, drreese.com. Be sure to check out his podcast. They're very short, like 3 minutes, but they're fantastic and they're every day. So everyone, on this day before Thanksgiving, I can't imagine being more thankful than I am right now for all the work that Dr. Reese is doing to help our planet and our beautiful animals. Thank you, Dr. Reese. Your work is never ending, full of passion and love, and your voice is loud, and it needs to be because it represents so many animals being tortured and killed only for money. All of the bees, trees, and seas are in trouble, but with you in our world to educate everyone, I sleep a little better every night. So thank you, Reese, from the bottom of my heart. Okay, my podcast family, let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Reese Halter now. Dr. Reese Halter's passion for the environment is lifelong. He is a powerful voice for bees, trees, and seas and saving nature now. Dr. Halter is a distinguished biologist and award-winning broadcaster and writer. His latest book is Shepherding the Seas, The Race to Save Our Oceans. His other books are The Incomparable Honeybee, The Insatiable Beetle, and Life, the Wonder of It All. As I said, Dr. Halter has the unique talent of making current complex environmental issues accessible and compelling to any audience. He believes that human beings are exquisite problem solvers, that for every issue there are at least 3 solutions. His passion to protect our planet is contagious, and I can attest to that one for sure, folks. Dr. Halter has studied nature for 4 decades. He holds a PhD in ecostress sub-alpine eucalypt physiology. He lives in Los Angeles, California. Well, make that Hollywood, California now. And he's active in the community with children in schools. He enjoys quiet walks on the beach with his beloved labrador buddy, Nieo, who was named after a beautiful Hawaiian tree that Reese worked on. Be sure to go to his website and buy one of his books, because not only will you donate and contribute to his work, but you will learn a lot. Oh, and while you're there, may I suggest that you make a donation to say thank you to him for all he's doing to help clean up our oceans and to save our bees, trees, and seas. Okay, now let's go meet Dr. Reese. This one, you guys, you will not only need to put your listening ears on, but you'll need a box of Kleenex by your side. And I promise you that his talk today will change your life and motivate you to take action and do your part to participate. Okay, sit back and put that seatbelt on, because here we go. Hi, Reese.
How you doing?
Welcome to the Vidal Speaks podcast. I'm looking forward, and so are all my listeners. We want to hear your wisdom from the seas, trees, and bees, because I know you're the expert.
Yeah, baby.
All right. So where do we start? Maybe I have to start before I get into all this drama subject that's so intense and that I love so much is about you. Tell us, how did you get into all this environmental stuff and animal stuff?
Well, I come by it pretty honestly when I was very young, maybe 2 or 3. My dad introduced me to nature, and we planted trees every springtime, my little brother and I, wherever we were on planet Earth. For the first 20 years of my life, we planted trees. And then I probably one of the few people you'll ever meet. I wanted to know trees. So I thought, well, maybe I should go to forestry school. And turns out that forestry school was all on how to take my trees away. And it was heartbreaking. And they did their best to fell me and fail me. And I hung on, and I discovered that I was a pretty good researcher. And my summer job with the Forest Service, well, the first summer job, I went back to my roots, pardon the pun, I planted trees. And then following summers, I worked for the Forest Service. And while I was supposed to be doing whatever I was supposed to be doing, I was looking around, and I noticed that the plantation trees A, weren't doing very well, and B, when I pulled them out of the earth, their root systems were all mangled. They're pre-shaped. You see, they grow them in a little, almost like a test tube, and then they outplant them and the tree grows. And most of them look reasonable above the earth, but below the ground, they're not happy. So I did all this and I thought, God, this is really cool. So I conceived my honors thesis and I did this study and showed how mangled they were. And way led to way. And I went to graduate school in Australia. The best scientists in the world in the day. This is pre-web. So I actually had to go to the stacks and look people's names up and find out who they were. And I wrote them a letter. I wrote several people letters, but I wrote my Professor Roger Sands at the University of Melbourne a letter. And 9 days later, in the old days when you got letters, I got a letter back from him and he said, we'd love to have you. I swear I knew nothing on any of the trees in Australia, and the diversity of life in Australia is just over the tops. It's just so sexy and so big.
Wow.
And I went there and I studied at the top of the mountain in the day when they still had cold temperatures to try and figure out how life could exist at the top.
Interesting. And how long were you in Australia?
Almost 5 years.
And where did you grow up?
I was born on the Northern Plains, and California has been my home for a long, long time.
Yeah, it was funny. I don't know why. Maybe it was from an interview I saw you do. I thought you were in England. So when I was emailing you, I was thinking, oh, wow, I'm going to get this British trap. And you're like, I'm in Santa Monica. I'm like, what? Cool. Can you come to the studio?
Yeah.
So it's so nice to have someone over here to the studio and do it live. The sound's a lot better.
Yeah, it's fun.
Wow. So you're in Australia and you do this work and now tell people what you're doing now.
Well, I'm a Earth doctor, which means I specialize in Earth's life support systems.
Okay. And hang on a second.
Yep.
I need your Earth doctor voice.
Yeah. Well,
let's have one sentence.
We'll get that in a moment. But, so, and I went from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the ocean and everything in between and our bees. So I really boil things down to bees, trees, and seas because people can at least identify with what it is. And they're all a shambles and they're all in trouble. And now it's really up to us to lighten our proverbial footprints because we know the problems. This is elemental. It's just turn the ship around now.
Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today is bees, trees, and seas. And I have a very special affinity for the bees. Did you know the name Deborah in the Bible means bee?
No.
So I don't know.
Awesome.
As a kid, I always had like bee things.
Yeah.
I'd never liked the name Debbie, but some of my friends, we had like a bee group and they'd call me Debbie.
Oh, nice.
So anyway, and I think a lot of people really are clueless about the bees, sadly.
Oh, the bees are first of all.
But wait, can we do them last?
Yeah, sure we can.
Because they're my favorite and I'm saving the best
all
for
right,
last.
okay, fair enough.
Let's start with climate change because that'll include the ocean. But where do we start with that? Just give us your take on climate change. Where we
start with it is we're in a climate crisis, and it's a human created thing. The physics and the chemistry behind it, we have known what we're doing for decades. And basically, for those that want the 411, when we burn either a liquid or a solid, energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's just transformed. So if you burn gasoline or a hunk of coal, liquid or solid, when we burn it, it goes into the gas stage. And when it goes into the gas stage, those molecules by the billions have been accumulating in our atmosphere, and everything is just record breaking. The amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere right now and its rate of increase mimics that of 66 billion years ago. That is an epic disaster because Earth isn't cooling down at night. And we're missing mega amounts of white surfaces. And I'm now specifically talking of both sea ice at both poles. The news this morning was the Antarctic sea ice is a record low. and also our glaciers on the land are all melting. So it's irrefutable that the ocean level is rising, right? And that's from the land ice, not the sea ice. We know. We know that when the remaining phytoplankton, the plants on the ocean that make up the entire basis of marine life. So everything starts with these plants. We're missing 40% of those plants. And by the way, those plants, along with the blue-green bacteria, Prochlorococcus, give us all almost 2 out of every 3 breaths of air. We're missing 40% of that. So we know that. These are measurable facts. That's a disaster. And also the remaining 60% of the phytoplankton, as it's trying to pull more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, the carbon dioxide coming from when we burn the fossil fuels, when they pull that out of the atmosphere and they put it in the oceans are turning acidic. Now, what that means is that if you're a shellfish or a coral reef, you're made of calcium carbonate and acid oceans melt them. If that isn't overwhelming, it's scary because that rate of acidity is the fastest in 300 million years. These are big numbers and maybe they don't mean anything, but when we look at the free swimming little sea snails just off the west coast of the United States, the pteropods, 53% have severely melted shells.
Aww.
This is an epic disaster. And the acid oceans, that's not so easy to reverse. Right? We're thinking and we're planning on how to remove the CO2 from the atmosphere. We hope at some kind of a rate, but the oceans, we can't de-acidify at the rate that they're acidifying. That is a crisis. I mean, there's 2 ways we can go, and I'm going to stick with the ocean because there's a really super close to my heart deal here. Ladies and gentlemen, the cetaceans, that is the whales, the dolphins, and the porpoises. First of all, they're so smart. Second of all, they're so sensitive. These creatures feel pain. They speak. They have very complicated and complex languages. Some of them, like the humpbacks, change their entire language every 10 years. These are glorious creatures that have been on our planet for 60 million years.
Oh, and we're
now,
losing them.
Well, we're killing them.
Yes.
Though 4 countries, Japan, Iceland, Norway, and Denmark, have some sort of sociopathic loose link against my whales, dolphins, and porpoises. But let's say you're not empathetic towards animals, which I would say, oh my heavens, what do you mean? But let's say you're not. We need all the whales, dolphins, and porpoises alive because their flocculent fecal plumes, their poo, is rich in iron and nitrogen. That iron and nitrogen is the fertilizer that's helping the oceans regrow the phytoplankton and give us almost 2 out of 3 breaths of oxygen. Now, let's say all of that doesn't overwhelm you, and it certainly should. Ladies and gentlemen, by burning fossil fuels, we know since 1985, my colleagues at Scripps down in La Jolla have been measuring off coast of SoCal and Cape Horn, which is the beautiful tip on the top of the little state of Tasmania, which is in Australia. It's the southernmost little state. It's an island. We've been measuring the molecular oxygen content in the atmosphere. And since 1985, burning fossil fuels has robbed the atmosphere of approximately 600 oxygen molecules per 1 million. Now, you might say, whoa, what does that mean? I'm still functioning during the day. Yes, you are. How do you sleep at night? 70 million Americans suffer from sleep disorders. And I'm telling you, falling oxygen in the atmosphere is a huge culprit. Wow. So fossil fuels are not only doing that to us, on top of everything else, if you can't wrap your mind around that, when we burn coal is a predominant energy source right now. And by the way, I have a huge bear bug. Can you imagine operating a business and getting $5.6 trillion in subsidies every year?
Jeez.
We're paying coal, oil, frackers, and natural gas $5.6 trillion a year to kill our planet. These are the biggest, wealthiest polluters on our planet. On top of all that, when we burn coal, we release mercury vapor. It's a deadly gas. It floats in the atmosphere for about 18 months, and it rains down mostly on top of the Arctic, because most of the people in the world live in the northern hemisphere. So, AKA, the coal is mostly burned in the northern hemisphere. And if you eat anything from the ocean or a lake or a river, or if you drink any water from a lake or a river, you're eating or drinking mercury poisoning. It's methyl mercury. It's sticky. And it not only gets in our bodies and doesn't leave us, it biomagnifies. So if you eat a poor little critter from the ocean or a lake that's got methyl mercury in it, it will biomagnify up your body by 100,000 times.
And isn't it true that the mercury, when you eat it in a fish, is like concentrated because it lives in their fat cells, and then it's concentrated? So versus even drinking the water that has the methyl mercury in it would be better than eating a critter out of the ocean because it's all concentrated in its fat. Is that correct?
It's true, and depending upon what you eat. So if you eat a little sardine, that's one thing. But if you're eating that tuna, and I pray you're not eating tuna because tuna is going extinct right before my very eyes, the tuna is an apex predator at the top of the food chain. So whatever poison it's eaten from the little critters, it's amped up way high. And then when we eat it, if you eat it, and I certainly don't, I'm plant-based, you're eating mega amounts of high concentration of mercury.
And that would be the case for most all fish, right? But the higher up on the food chain, the more you're getting. But there is no clean fish anymore. Is that correct?
No, there's not. Everything's toxic. And we're all toxic. It's just a matter of to what degree you're toxic.
And when will your meter go over the edge?
And when you hit the tipping point and your autoimmune system crashes, then you're done.
Yeah, it's one of my passions because my mom died from mercury poisoning from a flu shot. So it doesn't matter how mercury poisoned you get, whether it's from breathing our dirty oxygen, whether it's from eating fish, our amalgam fillings. I just interviewed Dr. Cutler about this because so many people are sick. And like you said, they don't understand that they're really having mercury poisoning symptoms.
Oh, yeah.
It's really becoming a crisis.
It's global. It's everywhere. And if nothing from today other than you are what you eat and what your body absorbs, please, ladies and gentlemen, go to a plant-based diet and be very careful of what you put in your body.
I want to hear I know there's probably a bunch, but what are the three biggest destructions of the ocean? The three biggest causes of this state?
Well, Deborah, we're in the 6th grade extinction right now. And so what we know, we're losing big animals, great white sharks, fin whales that Iceland and Japan are killing, all big animals faster and at a rate never witnessed in the 5 previous mass extinctions. So now I'm talking what humans are doing to the oceans has never been witnessed since the dawning of reproductive life 1.1 billion years ago. At any one moment on our oceans, there are 44,000 floating slaughterhouses that are sucking and pulling in enough marine life to fill the Empire State Building, which is 103 stories to the roof, or 1,200 feet, we are filling that 122 times every year. We're sucking all the life out of the oceans. The hard facts are we can't live on a planet where the oceans are dead. The oceans are in terrible, terrible shape. We have the 44,000 floating slaughterhouses. We have the equivalent of wrapping 2 billion hooks all together, if we attach all the lines, 27 return trips to the moon of 13.5 million miles of hooked lines in our oceans. This is wrong. And if this doesn't break your heart, on top of everything else, our insatiable demand for fossil fuel, even though apparently the world met in Paris last December and agreed on some arbitrary number to keep Earth under 1.5 C, and we touched almost 1.5 C in the month of February. That's how hot February was. The major concern is the oceans are at least 1.5 to 5 times hotter than anything on land. The hottest thing on land is the Arctic. We can tell you, Deborah, that the amount of energy we've infused into the oceans. So the oceans make up 95% of all the living space on Earth. Even though they cover 70% of the globe, they make up 95% of what we call the biosphere. The oceans have been supercharged with 300 zetajoules of energy. 150 of those zetajoules have occurred since 1996. 1 zetajoule is the equivalent of detonating 1 Hiroshima-style atomic bomb every second for 75 straight years.
God.
The oceans are boiling.
Now it's time to take a break and get a drink. After what we've heard so far, you may need to chug a big one down. Speaking of chugging something down, have you guys heard of those tonics by Kavita? I'm not talking about their regular drinks. I'm talking about their tonics. They make one that's the chili lime flavor. Man, I love that. It's so good. And it's vinegar. I think it's apple cider vinegar, chili, and lime. It's delicious. So that's my tip of the day. You got to try it. I love it. I don't do a lot of kombucha because kombucha has caffeine. So this Kavita tonic is my replacement. It's really great. Anyways, has Dr. Reese's passion gotten a hold of you yet? He's so authentic and real. Are you enjoying the show so far? I hope so, because you guys, he's the real deal. So my call to action today is to let you know that any donation that you make to the Vidal Speaks podcast via my donate button this week, I will donate 50% of that to Dr. Reese Halter or to any charity of his choice. And thank you so much for any of you that have contributed to the show or support the show through the Amazon banner. And speaking of that Amazon banner, you know the holidays are just around the corner. And remember that if you're going to be using Amazon for any of your gift buying, then be sure to use the banner on my site so that you can make someone happy and support the Vidal Speaks podcast at the same time. I so appreciate it, you guys. I hope you know that. Okay, are you ready to get back to the show? Let's go.
Why should you care about the oceans? Because all our climate is driven from the oceans. So when the oceans get warm, the ocean currents change. When the ocean currents change, for instance, they don't carry cold water with iron and nitrogen to the surface. That's why we're missing 40% of the oxygen-bearing phytoplankton. This is epic. The oceans are so warm that all life, phytoplankton, even jellyfish and fish stocks have moved as much as 10 degrees latitude in both hemispheres toward the poles, toward the cooler poles. We've never seen anything like this. So fossil fuels are impinging on all sea life, their food, right? And if that isn't bad enough, there's a movement afoot to find the very last drop of these fossil fuels. You might ask, how do we do that? Mm-hmm. And it's awful. They take boats and tow barges behind the boats, and every 10 seconds, non-stop for a couple of months, they pulse 252 decibels every 10 seconds. A 747 jet would deafen a human ear at 140 decibels. 252 decibels. Those sound waves flick to the ocean floor, and when they hit a liquid, they reverberate a different wave back to the boat. Now, any sea life, like my cetaceans, the whales, dolphins, and porpoises, tunas, sea turtles, and everything that happens to be anywhere near those pulses, they go deaf. A deaf whale is a dead whale. We are so hell-bent for leather currently to destroy our planet to get the very last drop of climate-altering, subsidized fossil fuels. We are wiping all of the sea life out of the ocean. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I mean, you don't even need to be a physicist or a marine scientist to go, what is this guy saying? Here's the thing, Deborah. Whether you're a trillionaire or the soon-to-be trillionaires, or whether you're a pauper, we all breathe air, we all drink water, and we all eat food. What we're doing to our planet right now is poisoning everything. Everything. And we together, trillionaires and paupers, we cannot live on this planet. We have no other planet. Hello, Plan B.
Exactly. But I don't understand the mentality of humans not getting this. And maybe you can live in denial for so long, right? But
I'll tell you,
so far past that.
True, but there was a great line in Money Never Sleeps, Wall Street 2, Oliver Stone's movie 5-6 years ago, when the young stockbroker asks the tycoon, name your price. And he says, what? He says, well, how much do you need? And the answer, more. And that answer of more typifies our race. We want more. Deborah, all wealth comes from nature. This much we do know.
Yes.
We're taking at least 160% more from nature than she can give us. And unless we pull that back at least to 90%, our race will not make mid-century if we don't change this thing up immediately.
And do you think that I heard a stat that the oceans will be fished out by 2050? Is that really true?
I've heard it. And the other thing on the oceans that I'd be remiss to not mention, the plastics.
Yeah, that's my next question.
There's approximately 51 trillion pieces of plastic. There's approximately 25 billion pounds of plastic going into the oceans every year. Truthfully, I don't think at the current rate of harvest, I can't see the oceans functioning a day past 2030, the way at this current pillage. And and I never even mentioned the poachers. We have systematically over the last 15, 16 years wiped off the map 1.5 billion sharks. Now, sharks have been on our planet. There's over almost 500 species of sharks. They've been there for 400 million years. And many of the shark species, their populations are now down to only 10%. Sharks are the doctors of the oceans. Sharks keep the oceans healthy. They keep their prey fit by culling the old, weak, and sick. When we remove apex predators like sharks, our oceans get really sick. And the sharks have been slaughtered for their fins, for shark fin soup, and for the squalene or shark liver oil that is in some cosmetics and a host of other products. And I beg of the listeners, when you buy any personal care product, take a magnifying glass, and look at those ingredients. If you see squalene or shark liver oil, don't buy it. And as for ever eating shark fin soup, please never, ever, ever do it, because we're missing the sharks. And also, it's laced with methyl mercury. So you're actually eating poison on top of tasteless cartilage
and killing a life
and taking one of these glorious, glorious creatures. So the oceans are a mess, but here's what we can do, because these problems they're as thick as we can possibly imagine. But when we band together as consumers, and when we realize that with our smartphones and our decisions, if we all change a couple of habits, and if all earthlings said, I'm never going to buy anything with squalene or shark liver oil, and you look at a product, companies shudder, because when thousands and millions and tens of billions of people don't buy their stuff, guess what? They change it up real quickly.
Right. And it's the way you can make an impact. I always say, vote with your fork.
Absolutely.
People feel hopeless because one person, one normal person, not a billionaire, trillionaire, but even it doesn't matter how much money you have. It sometimes feels like, what can I do? One person.
Lots.
But there's lots.
We are powerful people. And when each of us as powerful people band together, lock horns, our arms, we are a force of unstoppable goodness. And that's how we change this up.
Yeah, it's a grassroots effort is stronger than anything, right? And about the sharks, I know in California they're having more attacks. Is that because they have no food to eat, or is it the temperature of the water?
Well, in part both. Because the oceans have warmed that much. The actual seasons in the ocean have changed because the oceans are that warm. So things are moving. I mean, at the end of the day, all life has to eat. So when you can't eat, you die. When your habitat is destroyed by these trawling boats. So on top of these boats scooping everything out of the ocean, they drop beams almost the size long as the studio and maybe 6 feet wide, several tons, and they drag them along the seafloor, smash the seafloor to smithereens, and the slowest growing organisms on Earth, the cold coral gardens that sit on the top of the underground mountains at the very top, what we call seamounts, they smash them to smithereens. And when animals lose their habitat, they die. In the oceans, we haven't got the latest numbers, but it's probably 60% of all coral reefs now are dead. Coral reefs are home to at least 1 million organisms. They're a nursery ground and they're essential feeding grounds. And when they die, the animals die. And by the way, let's say you never dive, and let's say you live in the Midwest and you have no intention of ever seeing a coral reef. Coral reefs have some of the most powerful pain, heart, and cancer medicines we've ever found. Hello. I think at the end of the day, the point to take home is Earth is heaven. There's nobody I know who's going to get to the gates, the pearly gates. And when St. Peter says to you, would you ever litter? Did you litter? Would you do anything bad in heaven? And everybody's going to say, oh, I wouldn't. Then why would you do it on Earth? Because this is the Garden of Eden. We have everything here, and we are systematically destroying it for no other reason than we can.
Right.
What up?
And more, and greed. But it's just, I don't know. I see, being a vegan, I go out and you're usually like the strange person in the room. It's getting more common now.
Yeah.
But you look around and you just see fish after fish on someone's plate. And I always say to myself, like, how can they do that? Like, I've just been aware of this.
Well, what we're trying to do is awaken their compassionate gene. And I think that one thing that people, I think that's very humbling to know that many animals have languages, and many, I would say all animals feel pain. And when you start to understand that we're not that dissimilar to other forms of life, and that we need nature, our life support systems. Nature doesn't need us. If we continue to destroy and harm and create such pain to all the animal kingdom, we are going to be all left alone on a planet that is lonely and has no life support systems. So we have no choice but to change, but we beg of people to be compassionate. You know, whatever your particular spiritual belief, if we all followed the golden rule, do unto others what you would have others do unto you.
Right.
Dude, it's not that difficult for people to grasp that. Be kind. Be kind. It's not hard.
But do you think what is hard is them going from their usual diet to plant-based? I mean, I never can understand why that's such a difficult thing.
And here's the thing, Deborah. When you have a heart attack, God forbid, your cardiologist says, would you like to live? Oh, I want to live. Well, you change your diet. You will see that most cardiac patients will listen to their cardiologist and change their diet. So This isn't something from another galaxy. If you eat animal products, you're going to have some sort of a coronary issue. And
for sure,
that's our plumbing. That's our plumbing, right? Take care of your body, and the last 10 or 15 years of your life, if you're lucky, you're not enslaved to the pharmaceuticals because you've burned your system.
Yeah. Needless to say now, the alarming rates of cancer from animal proteins. But back to the plastic for a minute.
Yep.
I heard from this guy that I interviewed, Dr. Brian Clements, that big island of plastic in the ocean that's huge, when it vaporizes into the atmosphere, that when it rains, even in another country, we're dropping that plastic in kind of like nanomolecules. So that means it's dropping into our oceans in addition of sitting there coming via rain. Did I understand that right? And that means our fish probably must have some of that plastics in them, right?
If you eat anything in the ocean, you're eating plastics. And it's not just plastics, which, by the way, have polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are hugely cancerous. The plastics are perfect sponges for some of the most awful, persistent organic pollutants that we've ever made. I'm talking DDT, I'm talking PCBs, I'm talking insecticides, phenols, phthalates, the latest, greatest anti-hull fouling paints. And you're eating that, and it biomagnifies up into your system. So this is an epic disaster. And by the way, plastic is a petroleum-based product. So this is another subsidy that is not right. The thing is, we have a perfect system. She's called nature. Nature has been going for a couple of billion years. She's a flawless system. There's no waste. There's no unemployment. Everybody eats, and everybody has a specific role, and it's all interdependent. Everything depends on everything else. And these systems are what make our planet gorgeous. The challenge is that quite quickly since the 80s, our population has doubled. And the reality is that many people wish to live like we began living in America in the 70s. And they want big, and they want more, and they want McMansions, and they want X, Y, and Z. And our planet just doesn't have that to give because, as I said earlier, we're in the midst of the 6th great extinction. It's not just the oceans that are a shamble. On land, On Friday, I'll be at the La Brea Tar Pits. We have the Lion, Rhino, Elephant March. It's also a march for extinction, and everything on land. Deborah, it's stunning. Since 1970, we've lost at least 50% of all land wildlife. In North America alone, we've lost 1.5 billion birds. The big critters, unless something changes up, by 2030, we may not have rhinos and we may not have elephants. A recent elephant survey found we had 50% less than we thought we had. We have maybe 300,000-400,000 elephants left,
and the apes and the gorillas,
and in Borneo and in Indonesia where they're logging like there's no tomorrow. They're destroying everything, and these are forests that are so complex. They're filled with primates. They're filled with birds. They're filled with exotic life. The most humbling thing I wish for everybody, that they could spend one night in a tropical rainforest and you've never heard a cacophony of noise and it's all in the dark, and you don't need to go to Blair Witch Project to be scared. You could be like, oh my goodness, what is this? And yet feel that life force. We can't exist minus these forces. We got to change this up.
Yeah, and elephants, they're dear to my heart. I did a lot of, when I played the tour, I did a lot of charity events for elephants. I don't know, I just have always felt very connected to them. They're just so amazing, the family life of an elephant.
They're run by chicks. The female, they're smart, and they send messages to each other on ultra low frequency sound that we can't hear, and it travels over the ground faster than sound, the normal sound wave. And the elephants in another herd several miles or farther away, they pick up the vibration on their feet and their trunk.
Wow.
These are sentient creatures. They mourn the loss of their family. They bury family members.
Yep.
They're run by females. They are what we call a keystone animal because the elephants do so much. They plant the acacia seeds, so they eat the acacia, one of the main woodland trees, and they poop the seed in a big fertilizer pack that not only helps regrow some of the seeds and trees, but it also feeds the baboons and the birds. The elephants create water holes that feed that allow all life to live. They create fire breaks. Their big paw prints create holes in the earth, so when it rains, there are water holes. These are incredible animals, and the desperate, ruthless poaching is enough to make a grown man drop to his knees and cry uncontrollably. These people, they harm the elephant, they don't kill it, and then they hack its face off while it's alive. And they do this to rhinos too.
Yeah, for their horn.
And it is so wrong, and it's so harsh. And the United States of America is the second biggest ivory consumer on planet Earth next to China. I beg of you, with every cell in my body, never, ever purchase ivory. If we don't purchase it, there's no market for it. And the elephants have every right to live on our planet. As much right as we do.
I feel like we need to go back to learning from how they live, because internet and modern technology is a great thing, but it's separated everyone. Everybody's living kind of selfish life in their own world. I should say everyone, but it's kind of the trend when you look at animal communities that work together and grow together, and we have a lot to learn from them.
We do. Yeah, we do.
They're incredible beings. It's so sad. It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, sometimes I can't think about it because I know it And it's like, what's the answer? I don't buy that stuff, but I still have to hear they're being killed.
Right.
It breaks my heart.
And you broadcast it so the listeners can hear the message.
That's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
And understand that as powerful people of change, we never purchase ivory because that's just not on.
Wow. That's about all I can say. Is Dr. Reese the most passionate guy, and his passion's so contagious. If you guys live in LA, please try to connect with him on Twitter and Facebook and take part in some of his marches, protests, or ocean cleanups that he organizes here. I believe he does a plastic cleanup every weekend at the beach, and we all need to pitch in and help. And the best way you can help, and the one that'll make the biggest impact on the environment, is to eat a plant-based diet. This is the only sustainable diet for our planet, which is in dire need of help. So please consider what you're doing when you say yes to food that has such a destructive impact on our environment. We need our seas, bees, and trees. And as Reese said, our planet will regenerate in thousands of years. Yes, that's thousands of years, but we will die without them being the animals, the ocean, the trees. We need them, and we're in a critical state now, so we each have to do our part. I just want to close by reading you a few stats, and it's all about the ocean since that's mostly what he talked about today. 3/4 of the world's fisheries are exploited or depleted already. We could see fishless oceans by 2048. 90 to 100 million tons of fish are pulled from our oceans each year. As many as 2.7 trillion animals are pulled from the ocean each year. For every 1 pound of fish caught, up to 5 pounds of unintended marine species are caught and discarded as bykill. As many as 40%, or 63 billion pounds of fish caught globally every year are discarded. Scientists estimate as many as 650,000 whales, dolphins, and seals are killed every year by fishing vessels. Fish catch peaks at 85 million tons. 40 to 50 million sharks are killed in fishing lines and nets. And honestly, the level of mercury in our oceans today are so high, and everything in it is becoming so toxic that I believe we're also causing a health epidemic just from eating ocean animals. Really heavy metals like mercury, they're neurotoxins, and they settle in your brain, your bones, your organs, and they stay there for life unless you do really serious detoxing, and that can take years and years. So with all that being said, maybe you can realize the impact that you can have by adopting a plant-based diet. It's a win-win situation, you guys. You'll get healthier, live longer, and at the same time, you can save our oceans and 70 billion, yes, that's 70 billion animals each year that are getting slaughtered for food. That's what's killing us and our world. So try a plant-based diet for 30 days and see how you feel. I encourage all of you to do it for you and for your planet. And if you care, then you'll eat in a way that helps the greater good and not just what you want. Okay, I really think I have to end on that note. I know it's a heavy one, guys. And if you're having a hard time listening to this or to any of the facts, then I think you need to re-listen to it, because being in denial is really easy when it comes to diet, because we just want to eat what we want and what we like instead of doing the right thing. So please just be open-minded and give a plant-based diet a try. Try it for 30 days. See how it goes. All right. It was a great show today, and it's one that'll be forever in my heart. Stay tuned next week to hear more from Dr. Reese Halter, also known as the Earth Doctor. I hope you enjoyed the show today, my podcast family. And you know what time it is, right? It's time to say goodbye. Vidal has spoken. Remember, you heal with a plant-powered diet, homeopathy, and detoxing, of course. Peace. Be healthy. Be free. Live life.